The universe remembered Orhun. It remembered the man who burned as bright as a star, the hero who was offered godhood and turned it down. It remembered the war that shattered entire galaxies, and it remembered the brilliant, blinding light that finally sealed the encroaching darkness. The universe remembered all of this. What it never expected, what it never even considered, were his children. The world where they grew up didn't even have a proper name. On the star charts, it was just E93, a quiet, overlooked planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Its skies were soft, its seasons were slow, and no one of any importance ever went there. That's exactly why Orhun and his love, Aelyra, chose it. It was the perfect place to hide, the perfect place to raise a family far from the echoes of war. They had 3 children. Kale was the eldest. He was quiet, watchful, and carried the weight of his father's past in his gaze. Then there was Lyra, born under the shimmering spectacle of a meteor storm. She was as bright and curious as a newborn star, but her temper could be just as dangerous. And finally, Taran, the youngest. He was all laughter and reckless joy, a boy who was far too sensitive, far too connected to the whispers of the universe around him. On this quiet world, the Starfire, the cosmic power Orhun once wielded, was gone. He had made certain of it, scattering its essence so no one could ever use it for destruction again. But a legacy is a stubborn thing. It doesn't just disappear. The first sign that something was wrong came when Kale was 16. He was out on a ridge, repairing a tall solar mast that powered their settlement. Suddenly, the world tilted. Gravity itself seemed to twist and bend around his hands. His tools, heavy wrenches and plates, lifted from their tethers and began to float lazily in the air around him. The mast itself started to hum, not with electricity, but with a strange, living energy. Panic seized Kale, a jolt of pure fear, and the power, whatever it was, responded instantly. With a violent snap, the mast slammed back into place, not broken, but stronger, perfectly aligned, humming with a new and impossible strength. That night, Orhun found his son sitting alone, staring up at the endless field of stars. He sat beside him, the silence stretching between them. "I burned," Orhun said, his voice barely a whisper, "so that you would never have to." Kale didn't answer. He didn't need to. He could already feel it, the vast, ancient consciousness of the universe, and it was watching him. Power, no matter how small, leaves ripples. Across the vast expanse of the galaxy, those ripples were felt. Old factions, remnants of a forgotten war, began to stir. The Remnant Concord, a fanatical cult descended from those who once worshipped the Starfire as a god, detected the faint signature of its return, and they weren't the only ones. Something else, something far worse, also sensed the awakening. Ancient beings that fed on cosmic energy, twisted survivors of the very same darkness that Orhun had fought to destroy. The scent of new power was in the air, and it drew them like predators to a fresh kill. The quiet world was no longer hidden. The first ships arrived in the dead of night, dark blades cutting through the soft skies of E93. There was no time to fight, no time to reason. The family did the only thing they could. They ran, again. They fled into the dark, using ancient broken jump routes that Orhun had sworn were sealed forever. The journey was a blur of impossible sights. They flashed past a city built inside the crystalline shell of a dead star, flew over a moon made entirely of shimmering, unbreakable glass, and navigated through a living nebula that whispered the names of the dead. With every jump, with every narrow escape, the children's powers grew. Lyra discovered she could ignite raw energy with a single thought, turning asteroids into fireballs. Taran found he could hear the voice of space itself faint warnings, distant memories, and the sorrowful echoes of long-dead civilizations. And Kale learned he could hold everything together, not just the ship, but reality itself. He could bend gravity, twist time, and even hold back the crushing weight of their own fear. He was their anchor in the storm. Their flight finally ended on Valeth, the broken, war-scarred world where Orhun and Aelyra had first met so many years ago. It was here they chose to make their stand. The remnant Concord fleet descended upon them, their message clear and absolute. They demanded the children. "Return the fire to the universe," their leader broadcasted. "Allow them to ascend to their rightful place as gods." Kale, standing beside his father, gave his answer without hesitation. No. In that single moment of defiance, Lyra unleashed her power, and a wave of pure energy tore through the Concord's lead ship. Taran, overwhelmed by the psychic noise of the enemy fleet, screamed, and for a split second, every mind on every ship went completely silent. Orhun stepped forward, ready to unleash the last embers of his own power, to fight for his family one last time. But he stopped. He looked at his children, standing together, and realized this was not his story anymore. The battle that followed shattered the skies of Valeth. It was a symphony of impossible power. Kale bent gravity into shimmering shields that deflected entire barrages of weapon fire. Lyra became a star herself, burning enemy ships from orbit with focused beams of light, and Taran began to sing, not with his voice, but with his mind. He sang a song of silence, of emptiness, and space itself listened, folding entire enemy squadrons into voids of nothingness. They fought as one, not as weapons of mass destruction, but as siblings protecting each other. As a family. Orhun watched them, his heart filled with a terrifying mix of pride and fear. This, he realized. This was what the universe had truly been waiting for. Victory was theirs, but it came with a heavy price, the truth. The Starfire hadn't vanished as Orhun had believed. It had simply divided. It had found new homes, splitting itself into 3 parts, one for each of his children. Together, they held the power to reshape galaxies, to create and destroy on a cosmic scale. But if they stayed apart, if they refused that destiny, they could live. They could just be human. They made their choice. Beneath the light of unfamiliar stars on a world far from home, they said goodbye to their parents. Aelyra cried, her tears reflecting the starlight. Orhun simply smiled. The children left, not to hide, but to explore, to protect the innocent, to live their own lives. And so, new legends began to spread across the galaxy. Not of a single, burning star, but of 3 quiet lights moving through the darkness. Of worlds saved without a single shot fired, of wars that ended before they could even begin. And somewhere on a small forgotten planet with soft skies and old, Soldier and his love grew old together watching the heavens, knowing that the universe would always be a dangerous place, but that this time it was in very good hands. But of course, stories like this never truly end. Far beyond the edge of known space, in the silent, waiting dark, something ancient and powerful stirred from its long slumber. It felt the faint, distant echo of that new light, that new power, and it smiled. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Cosmic Tailies. We'll see you in the next one.